Hey guys, so we're back for season 3 of the world's most dysfunctional family. I mean, these guys, they really need some family counselling. I feel like 50% of their problems, 70% more likely, could be solved if they just sat down and talked to each other, but we wouldn't really have much of a show then, would we? So look, when it comes to season 1, I feel like it started off so strong. I really enjoyed that first season. The Targaryens were definitely my favourite part of Game of Thrones. I even bought, I don't think you can really see, it's like a little Pandora bracelet and it's got a little gold dragon on one side and then on the other side it's got like a Stark wolf. So I can decide from day to day what house I want to represent. Anyway, moving from season 1 to season 2, I feel like it definitely did take a step backwards in terms of quality. Look, I totally get we need to have season 2 slow it down a bit. It needs to work as filler to a degree. We need time to get to know the characters. We need character development. It can't be non-stop action. I get that. But still, it just felt a little too slow. We spent a little too much time at Harrenhal, and I did like the idea of Harrenhal having this haunted mansion type aesthetic, and just the fact that we have these people that ride dragons who are afraid of ghosts, I found hilarious. And I would have liked it if they had led more into that haunted house approach. That would have been cool. But anyway, look, Harrenhal, it just felt like we just spent too long there. Okay, so season 3, is it on par with season 2 or better? It's definitely better. It's definitely a step up from season 2 in quality. Not a massive step up, but definitely a step up. And I'm really excited to see what comes next in season 4. And hopefully we don't have to wait another 10, 100, 1,000 years for it. It feels like there's so long in between seasons. I mean, it should not take this long. It's 8 episodes. So something that I've always suspected that they finally confirmed in this season is that the original Targaryens made a deal. So the leader of the Faith said this season, that the original Targaryens made a deal with demons or something and they wanted power. So they were given dragons, and big surprise, making deals with demons backfires. So the dragons aren't a power that they can control. They say this in the very first episode. King Viserys says that the idea that we control the dragons is an illusion. So the leader of the Faith rejects the divine right for the Targaryens to rule, framing their magical bond with the dragons as an abomination born of dark sorcery, not a gift. So I feel like this show is very much like a Dark Grimm style fairy tale, because the original Grimm's Brothers fairy tales actually served as cautionary tales, tales of morality. And this is a cautionary tale of how power corrupts. It's like they say, absolute power corrupts absolutely. That could very much be the theme of this show. And when it comes to the characters, Sir Ulf is definitely my favourite part. Maybe that's a bit strange, but I just found him endlessly entertaining. The visuals, the cinematography, the score, the acting was all really impressive this season. So season 1, I was Team Green. Season 2, Team Black. Now I'm just neutral. They're both horrible, but they're both so entertaining to watch, just destroy each other. So Aemond, definitely my other favourite character. And I feel like he was sidelined a bit this season. He is such a great actor. I forget the actor's name, but he really makes the role his own. And it's interesting to see his character development, or it's not really a good development, but he goes from being this bullied boy to being the bully, to being someone who's quite cruel and, let's face it, a Norman Bates type mama's boy to the extreme. We'll talk about that a bit more later. But you can see when he finally got the power he wanted for so long that he was willing to try to kill his brother for. I mean, as bad as his brother is, I mean, this is a guy that lets his own bastard children fight in fighting pits and who knows what other things they're made to do there. This guy is the worst. But even I thought, wow, I can't believe you actually went and burnt your own brother. Anyway, when he finally got what he wanted and got to sit at the head of the council, you can see immediately that he didn't listen to the people on the council, and not just the women, but the men that knew better than him, that had more experience, and a wise man knows what he doesn't know. And it feels like it showed he wasn't as smart as he thought he was. You know, this is a guy that really thought, I've got it all figured out. When I can take power, everything's going to be easy. And he definitely got a wake-up call. And I really didn't like how it showed in season 2 him threatening Helena, who's just the most innocent person on the show, and kicking his own mother, who had effectively ruled alone for so long, off the council. And considering he's such a mama's boy, like, it just felt really disrespectful. And I really liked his character in season 1. It feels like, from what I've heard, it's a lot more in line with how he's represented in the books, as someone who is extremely cruel, but good to those in his circle, his immediate family. I don't know if you've read the books. Let me know down below if that's an accurate representation of his character. Obviously, I know he goes on to do terrible things and war crimes, but it feels like, based on what I've heard, you know, he's always been good to his own family. And it does feel like towards the end of season 3, he's getting back to that attitude. We'll go into that a bit more later with him and his brother, which is something I just really love to see, their moment there at the end of season 3. Okay, so Daemon. So this is a guy I love to hate. He is a straight up villain, not an anti-hero, a villain. Let's not forget, he bashed his first wife's head in with a rock, and he strangled his pregnant third wife. Yeah, so he is a villain, but he's a very entertaining, very well acted villain. Matt Smith did an incredible job bringing Daemon to life and really owns the role. So after Harrenhal, and seeing how small he is in the grand scheme of things, you can see that Daemon has an attitude adjustment. He finally starts to support Rhaenyra instead of supporting his own claim, which he was obviously starting to do, and think of the implications. If he had pursued that, he would have had to try to kill his wife. So yeah, not the best guy, but he finally gets it together enough to support her, but still he's definitely not happy being king consort. So it's good to finally see him and Rhaenyra on the same page, except for all the cheating. He cheats, she cheats with the girl, so the show excuses it and doesn't call it out like it does for him. There's lots of social commentary I don't agree with in this show, but I can put that aside because it does its primary job. It entertains. It feels like a show with messaging attached, not a message with a show attached. So I can appreciate how Rhaenyra really tried her best to avoid war, but so many losses, so many setbacks have eroded her desire for peace. And at the end of season 3, it feels like we're finally seeing Dark Rhaenyra. I feel like her and Alicent have both committed straight up evil acts, but the show hasn't called them evil. And I feel like Rhaenyra is definitely heading in a Daenerys Targaryen sort of way down that same road, except I feel like the show is obviously going to give us that fleshed out gradual descent that we really need to see, instead of hurrying it like they did in season 8 of Game of Thrones. So I'm really excited to see what a full-on dark Queen Rhaenyra is going to look like. Then we have Helena. So she was one of the only straight up good people on this show, and she jumped to her death, just like Cersei's younger son jumped to his death, and they were both very sensitive people who just couldn't cut the position they were given and the cruelty that you had to have to really succeed in that position. And I feel like there was just a lot of similarity between their deaths, and she reminds me a lot of Luna Lovegood, actually, from Harry Potter. And we see when Rhaenyra finds her body, she's showing emotion at first, but then straight away she shuts down and has a blank stare on her face. And we really see in that end episode, she's really starting to embrace Dark Rhaenyra. And I like earlier on in the season when she was chopping off Otto to Hightower's head, We see her crying, we see her vulnerable, and it really humanized her. We see a conflicted, vulnerable woman. I don't think she's a straight up girl boss like other people are saying. She's conflicted, she's emotional, and so many writers these days try to write strong women as having no emotions, and I feel like this did the opposite, which I really appreciated. Okay, so we get some character development in the scenes with Damon and his daughter. When he realizes how much he's failed as a parent, when his daughter would rather hide in a cave with a dragon than come with him, and she comes with him eventually. But still, there's a lot of distrust there, and she calls him out, says, "You've never really been present in my life," which fair enough, he hasn't been. And I would have liked if that moment had had more impact on the storyline when she gets to face Rhaenyra. And Rhaenyra sees that Daemon, her husband, her king consort, his daughter, is the one responsible for her son's death. I feel like there should have been more conflict there. Maybe in season 4, when Rhaenyra starts to go down a darker path, there will be. So I get that this show is all about gender roles, but it can be a little heavy-handed at times. I feel like Gwaine Hightower is one of the only good, honourable men in the show. Though I will give the show credit for showing how women and men can both be absolutely consumed by a desire for power. Okay, so Sir Criston Cole dies this season. No great loss there, not a character that I enjoyed. He was so angry for so long at Rhaenyra, and he had a right to be. Back in that day and age, if he had denied her anything, he could have been killed. There was definitely a power imbalance there, even with her being a teenager. She was the future queen, and look, he has a right to be angry, but he was so angry for so long, and then goes and does the same thing with Alicent, and he just rubs me the wrong way. He goes off on a mission, he wants to die, and he's willing to take all these men down with him, and this man who goes on and on about how honourable he is, then he gets told by Gwaine Hightower, an actual honourable man, "There's these women getting assaulted in our camp by our men, let's do something about it." And he really just doesn't care. It's the rich lord who actually cares, and I like that the show gave a bit of nuance there. Anyway, Criston Cole gets what he wants, he dies and takes a whole bunch of men down with him. So when it comes to Rhaenyra, I feel like the actress who played her, Millie Alcock, however you say her name, she was definitely a weaker actress than the older version of her, and also just the way she was written as a teenager really got on my nerves, but as she matured into a woman, I liked her character a lot more, and I feel like she definitely isn't the straight up girl boss a lot of people are accusing her of being. She definitely has a vulnerable side. Look, is she as well written as like Brienne of Tarth off Game of Thrones? No. Brienne didn't feel like she was in competition with men, which is sort of ironic given her story. She was driven by duty, not ego. She didn't just get things easily handed to her. She had to fight tooth and nail for everything that she got. And she worked well with Jaime, obviously not at first, but Jaime Lannister, you know, there was that scene where he had his hand chopped off trying to save her, and it felt like it was a good reflection of a woman who's really strong but also is vulnerable at the same time. And yes, they do that to a degree with Rhaenyra, but I just feel like the show didn't really give any examples of a healthy relationship between a man and a woman. Yes, it's about gender roles and it's a war of the sexes, battle of the sexes, but still, they could have thrown in one example of a healthy relationship, a healthy couple, and we don't ever really see that. I guess the closest example that we have is Corlys Velaryon. He's a character I really like. I feel like he's a good-natured man. Race swapping aside, I mean, this show is based on medieval England and it has the diversity of New York City, but still, it's not just about skin color. Also, they're lacking purple eyes. The Targaryen should have purple eyes. It's the same thing as the Harry Potter show. Like, not just Daniel Radcliffe, who I know had an allergy, but also the new kid who's going to play Harry Potter doesn't have green eyes, and it's a core part of their character in the books. How hard is it for actors to wear contact lenses? Nevertheless, he was a good-natured, upstanding man, so it was a pity to see the show portray him as being unfaithful to his wife, which seems to go against his core nature as an honourable man. Even within the context of this show, I mean, look at Ned Stark. His whole storyline was how weird it was for this honourable man to be unfaithful. But I did like the storyline where he goes and makes amends with his bastards, and I feel like maybe I'm reading too much into things here, but we see the two sons have very different attitudes. The Dragon Rider really wants that recognition. He really wants power. And then the Sea Captain's son, he doesn't want any of that. He's portrayed as being the more honourable man like Corlys. He's more his father's son. He's the one he names as his heir. And I feel like as the end of the season progresses, we sort of see a bit of a shift in character. Like we can see he's actually a bit power hungry. I don't know. It would just be really interesting if they reversed it and made it so that, you know, the Dragon Rider son is actually the more honourable man. So obviously this show was created to show medieval times from a female perspective, and there are female writers on the show, and I feel like they got it right sometimes and wrong other times. For example, the scene where Rhaenyra's son tells her own guards to lock her up, her Queen's Guard, and they listen to him. I feel like that was something that was really probably reflective of that time period and the attitudes they would have had. So they got that right, but then showing Rhaenyra on her period, it just felt unnecessary. I'm a woman and I don't want to see that. Okay, so let's talk about one of my favourites, Aemond, Mother's little monster. Okay, we get to see a vulnerable, softer side of him this season, which I really enjoyed. I really liked seeing him and his brother teaming up, making amends. Well, I wouldn't go as far as to say amends, but they're on the path to making amends, which is something I definitely did not see coming. So season 3 started off with him taking his mummy issues to a whole new level of Norman Bates creepiness. Just like Daemon in season 2, what's with the men in this family? Saw the inbreeding. So his brother is really the only close family he has left now Helena's dead and his mother just tried to kill him. I mean, she's really the worst mother ever. And the actress is only 3 years older than him in real life, which is really, really weird. I get that she was a young mother, but still, I feel like the actress and him, it just looks too weird on screen seeing them together. I mean, he's her son, as creepy as he is, and as much as there is at stake, trying to kill your own son, wow, like it's definitely in line with this universe. It's a cruel, harsh place, but still, Alicent is someone who's presenting herself as so moral, and then she goes and does one of the most evil things that anybody can do, though she is the same woman who tried to force an abortion on her daughter, which would have killed her own grandchild. So yeah. Anyway, look, the fact that she tried to coax him into drinking it by telling him, you know, this is your favourite drink as a child, and getting him emotionally. It was about her freedom, not Helena's, and she judges Rhaenyra for things that she did as well. Look, I get her life has been very hard and tragic, but just from a Christian perspective, I would have found it so much more interesting instead of yet another religious hypocrite storyline, which we see a dime a dozen in Hollywood, if we could have seen a genuinely devoted family woman trying to navigate her faith in a time of war while also protecting her family and the people that she loves. That would have been a really interesting storyline to see how she balances those two things. But instead, yeah, the minute she tried to do that to Helena, I'm like, no, I excuse other things because you've had a hard life, but this, no. And Alicent trying to kill her own son should have been this massive emotional moment, but it felt brushed over and hollow. It held no emotional weight. And obviously, when they, you know, meet each other again in season 4 and come face to face, there's going to be more of that story being told, but still, I feel like it should have been a more emotional moment. So hopefully Aemond leaves the creepy witch lady and teams up with his brother, which I really feel like that's where they're headed. So now Aemond's had a moment to reflect and develop as a character. It'll be really interesting to see if his ambitious, ruthless nature can be focused on reinstalling his brother as the rightful king to the Seven Kingdoms. Okay, so Ormond Hightower, aka the psycho with a weak stomach that was constantly vomiting, it felt like they were really leading up to something with his character, that they were fleshing him out. It was going to go somewhere and then he just dies. I mean, I didn't really care about his character either way, but still it felt a bit weird that they just killed him off. And then Prince Daeron, so we finally meet Alicent's third son and he doesn't have a taste for war. He's more of an intellectual. It'll be interesting to see, does he team up with his brothers and push their claim for the throne, or Aegon's claim for the throne, or will he just stick with Gwaine and do his own thing? So look, this season, there's room for improvement, but it's definitely a step up from season 2. I would give it a 7 out of 10. So if you've seen it, let me know what you thought of it down below. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in another video.